All right, here we go. Another great episode here in the community, here at Vital Performance Studio. This is the Vital Wire. Coach Jed Stugart. Pleasure to have you here, sir.
It's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
How many podcasts have you been on so far? Any?
I've been on, I guess you'd call podcasts, but yeah.
Lie to me. Say we're the first one.
But this is the first real podcast I've been part of. Absolutely. And well, with the coolest place, I got to tell you.
Oh,
this is absolutely beautiful. So get down here and check this place out. I'll tell you what.
Thank you.
No, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you. Well, we kind of talked a little bit pregame here about what the intentions were. In the community, in the limelight, you were very much the Lindenwood head football coach, which is super cool. Mm-hmm. But what we want to do is just take some time today. The Vital Wire is all about just introducing people into our community of who's here, who lives here, where'd they come from. So while we're not going to dive into formations and staff so much here, unless you take it there, we more just want to start off with who's Jed? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get here?
Well, it's a great, fun and exciting, notwithstanding some ups and downs and some trials along the way, which makes this journey all special and definitely educational. Going through those hard times. So, grew up in Greeley, Colorado.
Okay.
North of Denver, a little the G town, and grew up in an amazing household. My mom and dad, Joanne and Jerry, and my brother John, and we just grew up in a great family, great Christian home. It was awesome. And my dad was a farmer, and was in the trucking business. My grandpa, we kind of grew up in the trucking industry and farming
cool.
a little bit. Helped on the ranch with my cousins and my aunt and uncle, Norton Kent and Charlie. And so, I just love my upbringing. I mean, it's just, a lot of work, the work ethic, all those types of things that I think, is what I attribute to, being in this business and even in the other businesses I've been a part of. So, so I grew up there and really, I played all the sports. I played football and basketball and baseball and tried to stay away from track. That was kind of
do not blame you.
I just never saw the whole merit in track. Running around, I ran when I had to, kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but to do it for fun, I just never did the track thing. But really kind of excelled more in football, and I was more of a bull in the china cabinet in basketball. But my dad was actually on the side. Always did basketball coaching. My brother was really good, but so I did play basketball, but really football was my love. But my goal, I was able to go on and play college football. I first went to Hastings College out in Nebraska and was there 1 year. I'd had a wrist surgery and really was out that entire year. But my true passion, I started to, my brother and I both kind of grew up when we were little. My grandpa had bought an accordion for my brother when he was like 5. And I'm 4.5 years behind my brother. And, so my dad, they gave John accordion lessons, and and so people said, "Man, what's an accordion?" But so we're a German family and everything. And then when I hit 5, about 4.5, 5, then I started taking accordion lessons, and my brother and I actually started going around doing little shows like
how fun!
Yeah, like Rotary and Kiwanis clubs and all these type of little community events. We had this little act. We were doing these accordion concerts and kind of like if people know who the Smothers Brothers are, they were kind of an older comedy brothers. So we kind of became a little bit like that. I was kind of the Tommy guy, the mess around fun guy. John was, but that's so I kind of fell in love with that kind of some of the entertainment aspect, and I always had an active play by ear musically, and so. As growing up farming and helping out on the ranch and doing all these things, just my love for country music and everything, and I really just kind of started, learning how to write music and country music and everything. And so I my love was really passion was music. Like I wanted to go be a country music songwriter. That was my whole goal.
Oh, that's so fun.
When I got done after my first year in college, and I found out injury-wise, I wasn't sure I was even coming back. It was a navicular bone graft surgery for my hip, and it was just hard to heal. Well, I lost interest, and I remember I took my dad, and I think I was over like maybe Christmas break or Thanksgiving break or one of those breaks, and I guess it was more Easter because I remember it was toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I took my dad to lunch. We were test driving a truck in our trucking company. We'd go up to eat in Colorado, and I remember we were sitting in this restaurant, and I told him, I said, Dad, I'm gonna move to Nashville and go learn how to be a country music singer and everything.
No
I just remember him
way.
looking at me like, what's that?
Come again?
What about school? Like, nah, I'm done with school. Like, I'm going to go learn how to do this. And I always appreciated his reaction. It was, instead of like, no, you're not. You're going to, he says, well, look, I really want to strongly encourage you to get your education. But, look, if, I think he already knew I was headed that way.
You made that decision already.
But and he always said, I really want you to try to always end up getting your degree. But if this is something you do, and he said, we're not going to fund this. I mean, it's, I told you I'd help you with some school, but I'm not gonna help you on your little Nashville endeavor. Because I think he probably thought, oh, great, this is a phase, and he'll be back in a year. But I moved to Nashville. I was about 19 or 20, and got a couple jobs out there, and found a place to live, and I started my music journey.
That's super
Well,
cool.
we've heard you. I know you've done at least one wedding, so I heard that, and I was like, "Hang on a second, Coach she's like, yeah, absolutely." So you did Cheney's wedding, and that was. I mean, this is exactly why we want to have people on this, is because it's like there's so much more that people don't know, don't see, and would enjoy hearing about, and so from Colorado to Nashville, and then. And so at what point in time does Ange come into the picture? Because you got a beautiful family, very athletic family as well.
And that's where, so Ange and I's story is probably a whole nother podcast. There's, like I said, this journey is long, and there's a lot of twists. But so Angie and I went to high school together. She was a year, and thank you for that, because I did outkick my coverage with Angie. I always tell people I'm a good recruiter. All you got to do is look at my wife.
Maybe I should get into recruiting too.
Oh my gosh.
We went to high school together. We were friends. We never dated in high school, but so once I graduated and moved on, she was a year behind me. So we never stayed in touch. I mean, it was one of those things. We were just friends in high school, and I went and started doing the football or college, and then I went to Nashville. And then, first of all, after that first year is when the first Persian Gulf War started, when the Kuwait War and all that. And my dad was really smart, because here I was, 20 years old in Nashville, on my own, like not going to school, and I didn't know at the time, but he kind of said, it was kind of a smart move. He says, "Hey, with this war starting, and you're 20, if hopefully you don't get drafted," and I'm kind of like.
Oh.
What? And I didn't realize that they didn't even have the draft anymore. But it was a smart move by my dad. And so I was kind of like, well, maybe. So I called Azusa Pacific, where I was recruited to, and I had a couple of cousins that were going to school out there. And I called that coach, and I was able to. So then I went back to California and went back into school and started playing football again. So I had 1 year in Nashville. Met a few people, kind of got my feet wet a little bit, but then, after the war, Dad kind of tricked me into, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
So I went back to Azusa, and that's when I played football. So speed that up real fast. When I got done playing there, and another injury, I wasn't cleared to finish. I had 1 year left, but I ended up student coaching there just to finish, because I had one more class to graduate. And that's where I got a little bit of taste of the coaching thing, but not enough for me to say, hey, this is what I want to do. I was fired up to graduate and move back to Nashville and really pursue that. So I headed back to Tennessee. And then I got to speed this story up a little bit, but basically I was starting to do some things with, I started meeting some folks. I started co-writing with some people, and I long story short, I ran across an attorney there that really kind of saw something in me a little bit, and he really got behind me. And he'd, there's a lot of con artists out in Nashville. There's people that will say, hey, give me this money, I'll help you become a star, right? And you're always warned to stay away from that, because there's a lot of people that will say, give me $3,000 and I can get you where you want to be. And people would fall for that a lot. So I was very guarded. And I remember this attorney who represented like Lone Star and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Nice.
I knew he had a good
rapport.
And he was part of a firm that was a very established firm. Well, that triggered into meeting another manager and another booking agent. But before you know it, we were starting to tour around and open it up for people. And I was a solo artist, but I had a little band. Well, I took a break. I came back from, I think over Christmas or something. And I remember I was probably 24, 25. And I remember my mom had said, hey, you'll never guess we ran into Angie Wells at her dad's pizza shop in Kersey the other day, which was outside of Greeley. I said, Angie Wells, she's not married yet? Angie Wells? I remember Angie Wells.
Let's get straight to the point. Wait, hang on.
I did. I was I noticed she said Wells. And so I actually, that next day, I called the pizza shop and Angie answered actually, because her dad owned that and she managed that. And I said, hey, I heard Mom ran into you. And so we went and had dinner that night just to catch up a little bit. And so, yeah. And then, when I was home, we would spend a lot of time and talking over the phone. But it took Angie. Angie just saw us as friends. I was starting to really like Angie. Man, I think I like her more than a friend. But she was still, hey, we're buddies, friends, kind of thing. So that I always said that I wrote a lot of country songs because of Angie. So that's how Angie and I met. And then, of course, what I loved about that is. You have people that keep you grounded and keep you humble. And I don't think I was running around thinking I was something special. But when you're from a smaller town in Greeley, and I remember the newspaper had started writing some articles about, hey, Jed, this guy from Greeley starting to make it. And so almost everybody in Greeley knew what was going on with what I was doing. And we were actually going to do a show in Greeley that summer at the big rodeo they have.
Right.
I just assumed Angie knew about this. And I remember at dinner, I was like, say, hey, do you want to run down to the fairgrounds where we're going to be playing? And she's like, playing? What are you talking about? She had no idea. And I said, well, yeah, I'm singing. She was completely clueless, had no idea. And it was awesome because, sometimes people might want to start to attach themselves to you, whether it be, just friends or people that think you might be. It was kind of cool because I had a lot of friends that were starting to gain some interest in what I was doing because of maybe what ifs.
Yeah.
Hey, what if he makes it? But it's cool to know Angie had no clue. It was just one of those things where she's like, no, I have no idea what you're doing. So it was kind of cool that she never really got starstruck with any of that. Not that I was a star.
Sure.
Right.
But just it was all for the right. Just
depositing in an investment.
Yeah. And so part of that whole story was I finally got to a point where I had to kind of pour my feelings out a little bit, let her know how I was feeling, and she wasn't no part of it. She was, I just see us as friends, and so I had to step away from that relationship a little bit. And I actually started seeing somebody else. I was thinking I was liking them. And then about a month later, Angie calls me and says, hey, do you have time to talk? So I went over to her house and she kind of laid out said, hey, I do think I miss our relationship and maybe I do like you. And I'm like, oh, great. So
great.
I was like, geez, man, because I'm like, now I think I'm like, and so a year.
Life of a country artist.
I'm telling you. So
there's some good songs in that one.
So that's where it was fun because I ended up, saying, well, I'm, kind of not sorry, but I'm dating this other person, and I thought I liked them, but Angie just never left my mind.
Yeah.
And so we went a year where we weren't dating or anything, and then just God has a way of closing some doors. And next thing you know, I was doing a little show in Greeley for a benefit for a young kid that had a brain tumor, and we were raising money. We did this benefit concert for him to raise money. And I went out before the show. I went back to my bus to kind of get in, last few months before we come back out. And she was standing by my bus with a rose and a card, just kind of wishing because I was in kind of a little pause with my other relationship. And there she was, and then we went out the next day after that, and then the rest is history. So that's how it all.
I love that.
Like I said, there's a lot of details in between. Like I said, there's a lot more to this whole story, but it's a blessing she means the world to me. She's been an incredible support. Like, she's not just I always say, like, a coach's wife is a job. It's not it's not like, hey, you're just, like, the way she ministers to our players and to our coaches' wives, and she has a big part in our whole occupation. Like, this is her job. So she we have kids over at our house every week. She feeds them. The players know her, come to love her, and she does a great job with, like, a lot of our coaches' wives, just, like, keeping them, when you get a new coach that comes in, a wife that helping them and having little weekly
making
things
them feel
that they
part
do.
of.
Yeah, she's amazing, and that's not, in this industry, that's not always common. Like,
Right.
a lot of spouses don't like the moving around thing, and some of them say, hey, I'm not leaving, I love it here, and you go.
Right.
So I'm just, she's it's been a great team effort the whole way.
I love that.
She is an awesome gal. I mean, I've just basically recently have met both of you, but even every time we've met and spoke, and going to Gracie's game last week, she's just always so upbeat, always so welcoming. So just super great family, and it does say a lot about, because and directly, we can see that carry over into the program for sure, and the intentionality, and that's why it's like, learning who people are, where they're from, and literally listening to a story like this develop, I think has a lot of value for people to decide, as we maybe do a part 2 or a podcast on a different, and talk a little more about Lindenwood football. But I think it's a great opportunity for them to hear and listen and decide, like, that is or isn't for me, but I don't know how you can't be a part of something like that when you're pouring into those people, and, like you said, the ministry behind it. And that's not something we shy away from either. It's like, we love God, we're going to preach it, and it's going to be a part of what we do. Be a part of it, hopefully, and if not, we're here for you when you're ready. But to have that spillover and that intention and just the way of being, not even just so much speaking and ministering in that way, but just acting the part and being those people that are very welcoming and just doing things for the sake of people is super, super cool. And you see that carry over. So 2 kids, right?
Yeah, Gunnar and Gracie. I've got a 21-year-old son, Gunnar, who's playing golf and goes to school out at Mid-American Nazarene University.
That's cool.
And Gunnar's he's a junior. Man, it's going so fast. And then Gracie, 19 years old, who plays basketball at Truman State, and she's a sophomore. So the kids were they're 2 years apart, but in school they're 1 year apart. I always say we redshirted Gunnar. Just blessed by those 2 kids. Just like I said, all the moving we've done. They've done such a great job of moving around, and they've always kind of bought into that. They've always kind of been excited about the next move, because we've moved around several times, and some of them have been adversity involved. I always kind of say, I've kind of wrote down this little title, and I've been keeping little notes. I don't know if someday I'll write a book or write a memoir or something of my career, because I think you talk about, like, I always say the little slow title I've kind of said is the blessing of adversity.
I love that.
It's, when people look at adversity, and it can be such a negative thing. And in the moment, a lot of times it is. But looking back now, when you've been coaching for 23 or 24 years, and you look back at all the times we've been let go, I'm part of a staff, or things where you don't have a job and you're trying to find a job, and you got a paycheck that's the last paycheck coming up. You look back and realize, like, God's plan through it all to get to this point, and really the blessings that came through that adversity. It's amazing. And even and so our kids, even like picking up and moving into new places, now they're both so highly personable, and they adjust to things. I know some, like, going to college, it was so easy for them, because it's like, well, we used to move all the time. So, you look back at some of those things, and, because when the doors started shutting for music, and I could tell, we had gotten, we had signed some little development type deals, and I thought maybe, but then something would happen, you kind of go out with the bathwater with a record exec or something, and now you go to the next one. And I remember my attorney just kind of said, hey, we need to kind of get you off Music Row for a while, because we keep kind of, they're going to wonder why, okay, how come he hasn't officially signed, or why does he keep getting dropped? And that's just the industry.
Yeah.
And that's when I came back to Greeley to take like a fall off, and I ended up helping a friend of mine that was a high school coach in football, just to kind of pass some time. And that's where this bug started to get me a little bit. Like, man, this working with young people and coaching and the game that I love. Went back to Nashville, and then the next fall I came back, and Joe Glenn, the head coach at Northern Colorado, asked me if I'd want to volunteer and just kind of help on their staff.
Yeah.
And that's when the doors completely swung open to, and how God brought me into the coaching world from music.
Cool.
And then Angie and I obviously getting married, and because that, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I would have made it in the music industry. It's like, you don't have hardly time for family. You don't have those things. And so I'm so glad, like I said, the blessing of adversity. It's like closing those doors, which was hard and disappointing. I felt like I failed for a little while because how come I haven't? And then you start realizing, no, I closed that door for a reason, and another one opens, and this is where, and I've got so much peace about my life and my occupation now. And but opportunities to explain to kids, like, why did Dad get fired, or why are we leaving? Well, the head coach got fired and we're all gone with him, kind of deal. And teaching your kids how to handle those types of things. It's great opportunities to do that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
so many good lessons in there.
On the kind of on the topic of country music, there's so huge. Growing up, there's pictures of me, cowboy hat and all, Garth Brooks outfit, like huge Garth Brooks fan. And one of his songs, and you're probably already thinking it now that I've said this and on this context, is some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers, which also I've always translated to some of God's greatest gifts are the things that he doesn't let be easy.
That's right.
So it's kind of those, so kind of full circle. It's just great that you say that, and there's a lot of commonality, and I see it's just cool to, even somebody, young, I like to still think I'm young. I'll be 36 here in a month, but I'm still young, and I can appreciate that.
Trust me, you are. You are young.
But some of the commonality with having people like you in our corner, and I've met people like you, just sitting across from the table, it's like hearing some of this, it's like you're not alone. Somebody's been through it, and coming and being successful out of it, and finding the gift and the teachable moments, and how to take the grace and utilize it properly, and let it be a lesson or display how you carry yourself through that, and ultimately what it does end up providing some of the great things that you might not see now. Just wait.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I love, that I keep with me at all times, which is very similar to everything that we're talking about right now, is success is not the absence of failure, it's the persistence through failure. Going through that adversity and continuing through it is the success that you're seeking, as opposed to dwelling in that, allowing that door to close and moving forward with that, and teaching your kids that. It's absolutely beautiful. I think that's a great thing that you now get to pass on, not only to your kids, but also to everybody that you touch, as far as in the football program and any program that you've gone through and been with. I think it's really cool that you have that ability. I love that.
Well, it's I just had this conversation with one of my players the other day that's going through a really hard time with his an illness in his family, and it doesn't make sense, and people don't want to hear, one of my favorite, if you look at my Bible on my desk, the James chapter 1 is highly highlighted and marked up, because it says, I've spent a lot of time in that chapter, consider joy when you face trials, right?
Yes.
Well, people don't want to hear that when the trial is just starting. You don't walk up to somebody and say, hey, consider it joy, you're going through this. They're going to get mad and hit you and be like, you're crazy, right? It doesn't make sense. But but when you go through those, and now I look back, and I when it says consider it joy, the joy I've had now, I didn't know at the time the trials I was going through. But when you look back and go, man, I wouldn't have this joy in my life if I didn't go through that certain thing.
True.
God wouldn't have brought me to Lindenwood. Would not have brought if I would have got my way back then. And so, it's hard. That scripture, it's probably not super received well a lot of times because it doesn't make sense to, especially if you're somebody that's outside of, really growing in a faith or have a solid belief in Christ. It's hard to understand that because we don't. What is there to look forward to if you're outside of Christ, right? So it's like at the end of the day, we are going to, if we pursue through that, And that's what now I have, because I wouldn't, at the time, I didn't find joy in some of these things. I was frustrated. I didn't understand. I couldn't even make sense of his plan. But now I have the luxury of looking back and going, oh, God, you made complete sense in this, and thank you for that. Thank you for, you were wiser, obviously, than my choices. And so, yeah.
There's something to that. He only hands you what you can handle, essentially. And, it might not feel like it at that time. It might feel very heavy. It might feel terrible. Mm-hmm. But once you get through it, and he helps you through it, it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
I see now. I understand why you gave that to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Man, and like you said, there's so many different ways and avenues, and I'm sure we're going to do this again because we do want to talk more football too. But it's cool hearing your story. I knew a little bit, but even just diving in, it's just like one of our passions is and no different than you in the locker room. I know there's something that we could speak on and find kind of comical, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We're not going to go there. But the fact that you literally know everybody on your team's name, every one of those boys' names, every one of those trainers, everyone, what they do, and you probably know their parents' names. And, that was something that I had even told Cheney here, because as we're growing in office and, we've been as high as, 400 visits a week, and it's very much been for myself, our staff, knowing everybody who's in the office and knowing what they enjoy, what do they drink, where are they from, what are they doing, and if not, asking and being intentional and learning who people are. Mm-hmm. And so it's super cool to just hear a little bit of your story and kind of the trials and tribulations you've gone through and some of the things that people need to hear.
And what's shaped you. Right.
Well, it's amazing when you're, I think when you're, and being transformational, we talk about being a transformational program, and there's a big difference between transformational and transactional.
Right.
And I think when you realize that God has given you something, or a responsibility, or in my case, a head coach, I'm placed here because God has placed me here. Some people believe they're there because of them. Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to tend to think it is all about them. But when you realize that you're placed there because God's put you there, and there's a responsibility, or then who am I to treat somebody any different? So whether you're I'm the head coach, I know that by title, but on our staff, whether you're the youngest first time coach on our staff, you're not there. Your name is not your title. Your name is your name, right? Yeah. And I think that's the difference between what people ask a lot, what do you mean by being a transformational program? It's that understanding. It's three-dimensional. It's obviously the mental, it's the physical, but the third dimension that a lot of people don't have is the relational aspect of it. And that's really at the end of the day, that's the ones that win more effectively. Transactional programs win football games. I can to not offend anybody, I can start telling you which head coach is transactional, which is transformational.
Right.
And if you look up in the recent past in college football, a transformational team's won the national championship a lot, and there's transformational teams that have won or transactional teams that have won, and there's transformational. You can still win both ways, but really, how are you affecting people that come through your organization?
Yeah. What's your intention? Really, what's the overall goal?
Absolutely.
What's the purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so. This year had a great first D1 year. And then already going into spring ball, super grateful to care for some of the guys here already. But we're already looking into year 2 of our D1 football program, which is super cool. And all the guys I know are pretty pumped up. I think you would be pleasantly surprised, and I don't know if you know how many of the guys we have under care. Mm-hmm. I think Cheney could tell you. But I think it's very important because from a coaching side on mine, I think you'd be very surprised and proud or whatever other adjective you might use to know how many of these guys are taking care of themselves in other ways than just what a status quo football program might look like.
Right.
These guys, you're building a culture of guys to be very aware and apparent of what else can I do to be better. Mm-hmm. And I want to say we're upwards of every bit of 25 or 30 guys. Mm-hmm. And so to see that program flourishing and you guys being very intentional with the resources you're putting around you. I am super excited with how last year went. I know you are too, but these guys are pumped already about the spring football game. That's April 14th as well. 14th, holy cow. I mean, it's like, you and I had, I was blessed to meet you. It was August of last year. There with the football season, and here we are staring into the spring ball and summer. So,
well, I am aware, and I'm excited to continue as we build this relationship with y'all, because like our and even get more and more of Lindenwood's presence or understanding of how preventative injuries and things like that. So we're most grateful for y'all, because I know our kids are seeing the effects and learning the effects. Everything has got to be we as coaches are always talking about preventative stuff, so. We're grateful to you guys for helping us out.
Again, part of the mission, part of the purpose. It's like, what's my drive for that? Us, we have a lot of commonalities, huge athletes coming up, and to be able to give back however it is, you in coaching, us in the healthcare space and chiropractic and health and wellness, and it's just I'm super excited to be. I'm not even going to say I'm a part of it, but to be able to contribute to a program like this. We're alumni. That's where we met. So it's just super cool to see it come full circle. And so
no, you are a part of. There's no doubt. 100%.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, on the risk of making this, we could make this a whole documentary at this point if we really wanted to. I think another title you might want to consider is transformational and transactional. I think that's another title that you might want to put in your book of because I just love that, and that's something that I'm gonna steal, and I really pride ourselves on magnetizing people like you, because I think I can honestly say that's something that we are involved in as well, is being transformational. So anything that you want people to know now, anything that you, before we sign off, anything that you want to speak on, go over?
Well, no, I mean, not any, I mean, I would be remiss not to, this is not a paid endorsement. You've been taking care, people need to understand what you guys do. I'm not, they've not told me to say this, but I've got, my wife's been here, my daughter is an athlete that's had during basketball season, you guys had to fix up and get through, and so we're like I said, what the other thing too is how you guys go about it. I mean, this really is a servant leadership type of a place. I've gotten to know you guys, and if anybody wonders, you guys just appreciate the genuinity you have for your patients, and that you really want to take. I mean, even I got to be careful what I say, but I know I don't even want to know, but I know if you're not going to let somebody, if they you're not going to stop from helping somebody, even if they're in a position where they can't, and not a lot of people can do that. So we're just grateful for your guys' hearts. So it's awesome.
We're able to do a lot of good things because of our office, and so I appreciate that. That was very much unexpected, but I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, there's more to come with Coach. They call him Coach Stug, Coach Jed Stugart. Head football coach at Lindenwood. Really appreciate you being here and doing this.
Thank you so much.
There will be a part 2, 3, 12 coming forward, hopefully.
I love it.
So excited to see spring ball
kick off. You got the Cliff Notes version of it.
You guys are going to have to do a football one.
This is probably a huge cliffhanger. This is probably the biggest cliffhanger.
It'd be fun. We'll get Angie in here, and we'll our stories are kind of interesting when we say it together. We have different.
That would be super fun.
So if you want to really hear the true story of how we got.
I also want to hear the contrast. I want
to hear it all. It'll be so fun.
That's right. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
See ya.